Now this beautiful classic Jaguar represents 50 years of XK sports car history from the Coventry manufacturer, dating back to 1948 when the first XK engine was introduced into this XK120. And over the years Jaguar have produced some wonderful cars, the XK140 and the XK150, one of my particular favourites. And then a couple of years ago Jaguar introduced the XK8 to much acclaim. Now if 290 brake horsepower isn't powerful enough for you, if getting to 60 miles per hour in 6.5 seconds isn't fast enough for you, well, your prayers have been answered. Your dreams have come true, because now Jaguar introduce the XKR. Okay, cards on the table time. I've always been a big fan of Jaguar cars. I've only ever owned one Jaguar, an XJS, 9 years old, which unfortunately had to go recently due to far too many ominous sounds coming from under the engine and goodness knows where else. But thankfully those days of Jaguar reliability problems have long gone, and the XK8 has gone on to become the fastest selling Jaguar sports car of all time. Well, now the stakes are up considerably with this XKR. Now the new XKR really is drop-dead gorgeous. There are no other words to describe it, and the main visual changes you'll find over the XK8 are this mesh grille at the front. You get these two bonnet louvers which are vital to aid engine cooling. There's also a discrete boot spoiler, again to aid stability, particularly at high speed, and these new huge 18-inch alloy wheels, all subtle, all discreet, but stunning. But it's here under the bonnet where you really need to look. Yes, it's that 4-litre AJ V8 engine, recently introduced to the saloon range, with of course the addition of the supercharger, those Eaton supercharger, and it's even faster than the XJR saloon. Power from this engine is a whopping 370 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds, and a top speed limited to a mere 155 miles an hour. It would go quicker, I'm sure. This is the fastest ever mainstream production Jaguar. That supercharger delivers an extra 80 brake horsepower over the normally aspirated XK8, a car already voted the most beautiful two-seat luxury model in the world. And you can't argue with that, can you? Now, having a car like this with all the comfort, the refinement, and at the cost that this XKR is, really makes me wonder why on earth anybody would want to buy an Aston Martin DB7. The cars are so very similar. They're both quick, they're both supercharged, but the Jaguar is a heck of a lot cheaper. And I drove a DB7 fairly recently, was really rather disappointed. It wasn't as quick as I thought, and it was a manual gearbox which was very difficult to shift, whereas with the Jaguar XKR you get the choice of an automatic. And that suits me fine, because all you have to do is floor the throttle, the supercharger winds up, just listen to this, and you go. Whoa! So, what else has changed over the XK8? Well, the engineers have modified the suspension, the steering, the braking and the tyres to optimise the performance of the XKR. Computer-active technology suspension is standard, and this helps to optimise ride and handling in all conditions. It gives excellent body control, particularly at high speed, with a consistent, slightly firmer low-speed ride. Jaguar will be producing around 1,500 XKRs a year, and the UK should see around 500 of those. Now, if you want one, the cost over a standard XK8 is over £9,000. And that means that the cost of the XKR is £59,300 for the coupe, £66,300 for the convertible. Inside the XKR, it's a typical Jaguar. Lots of wood and lots of leather. Standard specification is very high, including a sport leather pack, the wood leather steering wheel and the wooden gear knob, a CD auto changer and a 10-speaker stereo system, cruise control, power foldback mirrors and a headlamp power wash. Now, Nick, what was the main reasoning behind introducing the XKR?
Well, really, because people had said, you got a supercharged engine in the saloon, what will it do in the XK8? And we put it in, found out it did an awful lot. So we're really responding to public demand, I think.
And you're pleased with the way that it's all turned out. And how long has the actual project for the XKR been in development?
Well, very, very quick. Originally, we planned this for 18 months into the future. And then the engineers said, boy, we'd really like to do it quicker, and they pulled this ahead by 18 months. So it's only been, in fact, 18 months in development. So very quick program, great lot of teamwork by the whole XK8 development team.
The XKR is a sports car that's a Grand Tourer and vice versa. Customers wanted an XK8 with more power, and now they've certainly got it. The competition should certainly be worried. Cars like the Mercedes SL, the Porsche 911, BMW 850 and perhaps Aston Martin, they can't match the XKR for performance. The only car that does come close is the Mercedes SL 600, but that's £40,000 more. So Jaguar have come up with a great all-round package in the shape of the new XKR.
Well, I get a lot of stick on this programme because I'm always being accused of swanning off to exotic places and having a fabulous time. So we thought we'd do something a bit closer to home this week, and believe it or not, this is quite close to my home, a few miles away. We're in good old central London. Yeah, you might see this dirty, grubby image of a London that consists of traffic fumes and homelessness and grubby buildings, but in fact we're in the heart of the West End here. We're in Regent's Park. And for me, along with Greenwich Park, this is one of not only the greatest places in London, but one of the greatest places on earth. But the reason that London is so green is that there were so many horse and carts around in London. So many people were travelling by the good old faithful horse in the old days, that there was an awful lot of waste from those horses. And it was all shoveled up into little corners, and from that we had these beautifully fertilised, if you like, open areas that became the parks. That's a great and quaint little story from the past. But on a more serious note, in fact, you're probably asking by now, well, why don't we return to those days? Because if more horses mean more fertilisation and more parks, that has to be a good thing in a city centre. Only one problem. If we relied on horses in London today, instead of motor cars, we'd be 40 feet deep in manure. So let's just get it into context. And before we complain about the good old motor car polluting the atmosphere, let's think of the pollution and the mayhem that would be caused if we're all relying on the humble horse and we're all travelling by horseback. But let's get back to cars, because we're in London for the launch of this car, the new Jag. There's something so quintessentially British about it. It could only be a British car. There's no way in the world you'd climb into this and suspect for a minute that it was a German car or, God forbid, a Japanese car. This is 100% British, with a tinge of Detroit, like I said earlier, thanks to the fact that Ford own Jaguar. Like I said, it's got the V8 engine from the XK8. There were very few complaints about that engine when it was unleashed in the XK8 Sports Convertible and Coupe, about a year ago now, and there will be very few complaints about that engine, that 32 valve all alloy engine in this car. I mean, I'm having difficulty actually thinking of another car right now that I would rather be driving. If I was I mean, this man is a danger. He's pulled over without a signal. Now he's pulled out and he's trying to do the same to the guy behind. And he's got a pile of junk, and we've got one of the best cars in the world. And we've got more to lose than him. People like that really annoy me. Not that I suffer from road rage, but I want to go back and nut him. Sorry, no, ignore that bit. Let me continue. This car is the sort of car, if I was told, sorry, there's a crisis on the other side of Europe, the other side of Britain, and you've got to get there quickly, safely, and in a relaxed kind of frame of mind. Not that that's easy when there are idiots like that on the road. I can't think of a better car in the world to do that job in. From the redesigned one-piece dashboard, to the instruments themselves, to the switch gear, to the radio controls, the air conditioning obviously, and the gear stick here. We're in the automatic version, and although it's got a sports feel to it, this car, and it is effectively a sports saloon, I'm quite happy to plonk this gear shift into drive mode. Ignore the sports button here, which gives you a slightly different setting for more sports-like driving, and just cruise. It's the sort of car that you're quite happy to cruise around in. The exterior is not as dramatically different as I thought it might be. Jaguar or Ford, you pays your money, you takes your choice. Jaguar insists that about 30% of the exterior is changed. 30% of the panels are changed in one way or another. And I couldn't point out many things on this car that look radically different from the car before. So it's very much an evolutionary development from the previous model rather than a radically different design. And of course that's no bad thing if you're an existing Jaguar owner.
To show the car, which we think is, as I said, a modern recreation of what made Jaguar famous in France and across the world. Its Le Mans winning C-types and D-types. So Keith Helfrich, Gary Albrightson and of course Ted Lowe, please show us the car. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
This is how to steal a motor show Jaguar style. Jaguar have come to Paris, the capital of fashion, with their own motoring masterpiece. This car is so good, you keep expecting it to actually trot off down the fashion walk and strut its stuff just like a model. It's called the Jaguar XK180. It's absolutely sensational looking. It does 180 blistering miles an hour. It would cost you £300,000, but sadly, you won't be able to buy it because it's never going on sale. Is there no way at all that you'd actually ever bring this into production?
Absolutely no way, Ken. We didn't do it to get a taste and should we, could we. We really did it to showcase the new special vehicle operations, or the newly reinvigorated special vehicle operations, and showcase some of the technology that we'll make available downstream into other cars over the next months and years.
What sort of technologies can you take from this car? The engine, for example, can you put that into your XKR model?
I just knew you'd ask that question. You might just see that engine in, pretty much in a future vehicle, let me put it that way. But other things that you certainly will see, the 20-inch wheels and tyres. I mean, just gorgeous wheels and tyres, really filling the aperture. The brakes, they're 4-pot Brembos, the suspension system. Those are the kinds of things that you're liable to see. And obviously, we've used the car also to develop some interior trim technologies. You won't see it exactly like that, but they'll be helpful to us as we move into next generation products.
With the retro styling that you've got in this car, is it something you can adapt for your future cars, or perhaps you could take it for even the saloon cars?
I don't think a saloon version, but certainly for a sports car, they look pretty good, don't they? So yes is the answer. I think we'll be developing that. We'll probably do some research on it to see what customers around the world tell us. And of course we've got it's not just a show car, it actually drives. It drives very, very quickly. We'll be using it, in fact, to recreate at Jabeca on the 30th of May next year the run of the XK180, where it actually outperformed its claimed 120 and did, I think, 131 miles an hour. And we'll be putting this car at Jabeca. The Belgian authorities have agreed to close the highway for us, and so we'll be recreating 50 years on.
This car's very much a Jaguar Le Mans interpretation, but somehow you've managed to take the retro look and also capture the future with a very millennium-style look.
I think, Ken, that is one of the hallmarks of Geoff Lawson and his team. They don't do a pastiche of the past. They take the past as an inspiration and make it utterly modern and up-to-date. And I think you can see it with today's saloon, today's XK sports car, and of course you'll see it with the S-Type at the Birmingham Motor Show.
Geoff, first of all, congratulations. You've really stolen the show here at Paris, haven't you? Are you happy?
As happy as a designer ever is. Designers always tend to see what is wrong rather than what is right. But I'm happy for Jaguar, yes. It's not a personal thing for me. I'm happy for the company, of course.
Now, to me, the car behind you looks perfect. It looks like it belongs in a museum. What could you possibly find on it that you're not happy with?
All design is a compromise. Nothing is perfect in design world, so it may seem perfect to you. To me, it is a handsome car, an attractive car. That's what we're after. But there are elements of the car that could have been improved.
There are things that you'd like to do, but you're tied by maybe legislation or by just simply what can practically be done.
Yeah, you're tied by time and legislation, all sorts of factors. It's in the nature of the beast. It's not a problem. But designers always tend to see the little areas, well, we should have just worked on that area a little bit more, or we should have worked on that area a little bit more. And it's no different for this car than any other car.
It's a wonderful blend of heritage, and you can see a lot of Jaguar's history in the car. Is it also quite important to you that it stands alone, that it's something very new and very different?
I think it's a good question. I think it's more important that the car reflects its heritage and its legacy and reflects the Jaguar DNA. That, to me, is more important than it be different in some novel way. So classicism, a design that hopefully will endure, an attractive design, for me they're more important prerequisites than the fact it is different in some way.
Well, a car like this should be driven in somewhere like California or somewhere certainly on the west coast of America. And we're driving it in Salford, near Manchester. But nonetheless, it's the only car to be in. I mean, it is very refined. We're in the sporty version, which has still got the wooden leather, but less traditional, as its name suggests, more funky, more upbeat, more modern. So if you're the 35-year-old businessman who's made 50, 60 grand, this is the car for you. And I've got to say, it drives as good as it looks. I mean, you'd expect that anyway, with all the work that's gone into it, but it really does handle. I've driven this car in the south of France, and now I'm driving it in sunny Salford. And it's got to be one of the best cars in its class. Jaguars say that it's up to Mercedes standard, it's the same as Porsche standard. I don't know about that. I mean, time will tell. The way I look at it is a car like this might be fine from day one when it comes off the production line, just been prepared by the dealer. Don't forget, you get a nice 3-year, 60,000 mile warranty in this car. But in 10, 20 years time, are we going to be seeing this car standing up to the rigours of daily life, as well as something like a Porsche 911, as well as a Mercedes, for example? Who knows? But meanwhile, sounds corny, but it's British, it's brash, it's back, and it's great. Nick Scheele, this is the car we've all been waiting for, possibly the British car of the year. Tell us a little bit about it, the Jaguar XK8.
Well, I think it just is a new breed of Jaguar that's come into the market. It's a car that I think most people who've driven it say it gives them just total satisfaction. They never want to get out of the car. And that's, of course, why we wanted to do the car so badly.
It's a British car, but it's an American-owned company. Ford these days own Jaguar. How British is it? How much have you had to rely on Ford for input with this vehicle?
Well, the input has all come from our engineers at Whitley. They've designed this car from the ground up. Now, obviously, what Ford gave us was frankly the money, and that's what we needed. It's a very British car.
Before anybody worries about the Ford connection, it's fair to say probably this car wouldn't have happened were it not for Ford stepping in and taking over Jaguar.
There's absolutely no question. Had Ford not done that, Jaguar would have been dead now.
It's a British car, it's a driver's car. It is effectively the replacement for the E-Type, isn't it? Why not call it the F-Type?
Well, we thought about the F-Type, and then unfortunately another company down the road from us in Birmingham came up with an MGF, so we decided that wasn't a good idea.
A wonderful car, but I think they've got the styling ever so slightly wrong. The whole point of Jaguars is that they look like cats, like Jaguars. You can almost see them prowling along the road. The problem with this is it looks to me like I don't know, just an ordinary saloon that's with a sporty touch. All right, that's a bit of an understatement, but you know what I mean. What I'd like to see is this car with a much lower stance on the road, much smaller wheels. This looks far too large to me, this wheel. And I think what we also need to see is the thing sitting much lower on the road. It almost needs a boot full of bricks or ballast or sand or something to lower the car down on the ground. Only then, I think, will it be the true sports car. Meanwhile, I think it's a very nice car, but for somebody in their 40s and 50s rather than somebody in their 20s or 30s.